Hello and welcome yet again to another edition of Top 10 Worst Of Lists. Bring you the best in worst ofs for well over 7 weeks. I'm your host for this intrepid endeavor, Manny Kin, and I must say that you've joined in on Top 10 Worst of this an auspicious occasion because, and I say this a lot, but you can listen now and hear me later, that this Top 10 Worst of list is perhaps the greatest of the all-time, the greatest all-time Top 10 Worst of list. I can't even comprehend a more consequential top 10 worst of. And I'm Johnny Top 10 Worst of. I'm the Top 10 Worst of Maven. Today's Top 10 Worst of list is Top 10 Worst Real Life People Who Would Make Great Bond Villains. Oh yeah, now I know that even those of you who might not necessarily feel like the Bond 007 character belongs in our modern, oh so incredibly enlightened era. I get it. He's a womanizer in a time when womanizing is no longer a thing, or in a time where monogamous sexual relationships is on the way out. People don't even know what they want to say next during a borderline rambling introduction to a top 10 worst of list would even call upon or point out. Imagine that. Well, anyway, before we get on to today's top 10 worst of list, I think you can probably see right off the bat, this one's going to be a humdinger. It's going to be a barrel of laughs. And yet, somehow, poignant. And that's the hallmark of top 10 worst ofs. And I say that with total and complete conviction. And by conviction, I mean conviction on all counts. But before we get in, just a couple of things I'd like to clear the decks with. Number one, I'm an oddball. I think, you probably figured that one out for yourself at this juncture. Even though we've spent, so little time together on this episode, only just a few minutes gone. I'm sure each and every one of you, regardless of your book smarts or horse sense or grade level reading skills, can figure out for yourself. Okay? Some things are just totally, you just can't hide. Even people, they'll keep a baseline amount of brains functioning in us, but then we'll do everything that we can to defeat it with taking tons of drugs and indulging in hours upon hours of escapism daily and boozing it up. All the various different types of things that we use to, create a droning, omnipresent white noise in our minds that inhibits us from being able to see the real truth of the world around us. Because it's, it's so much easier to just chillax and let the, sort of the nar wash over the world. So, I'm an oddball, but I would have to say that, this is a world. I think the oddball is pretty much in vogue these days. So where, you could say things in the old days that like you were a dunce or a nobody or a has-been or a washout or a dunce or an oddball, and people would be like, really? You must be so proud. But nowadays, I think people sort of are embracing their inner weirdness. I think the weirder the better. And I think the weird perhaps is the only thing that possibly save us from the ascension of the AI cybernetic robots to become the next step, the next phase of the evolutionary chain. You get tiny chimps, you get larger chimps, then you get muscular, robust, masculine chimps, and then you get gorillas and then human beings, and then that was it on the little evolutionary chain that looks like, the evolutionary pivot points crossing Abbey Road. But now I think that, looking like AI robots, AI cybernetic robots, really look like that. How long can I talk like this before it drives you nuts? I don't think much longer. Anyway, fact of the matter is that I think the only thing that could possibly either one, come up with a reason for us to be kept around, or number two, have the AI robots sort of be curious about us and perhaps maybe provide the sort of type of question in their cybernetic minds as to whether or not the human race should be wiped off the earth. It's almost like putting daisies, the scene in the 60s, the flower power generation, where they're going out to protest the Vietnam War, and you see them putting daisies in the rifle hole thingy with the shooting, with the bullets and the shooting. I don't know, man. But they see to put the daisies in. Like the Wayne song, push the little daisies. Well, they put it in I think weirdness might be the modern day equivalent of putting daisies in the rifle. It's not the butt of the rifle, the tube. It's the tube with the bullets coming out of the tube. And they'll be like, well, these oddballs, maybe we shouldn't slaughter them or put them into death camps and disperse nerve agents to turn turn the camps into open air gas chambers. So I am an oddball, but oddball might be, maybe not quite so bad as it was once objectified as. Number two, I'm not partisan, okay? I know that a lot of yous out there on the right aren't going to believe me. You're going to be like, I know me, a liberal that's ready to be owned when I seize one. And that is a liberal that's ready to be owned. Yes. Not true, dude. I am not that guy. Okay? It's not that I, endorse hate groups or anything like that. All the people who are looking to, slaughter people based on their sexual identity or religion or color of their skin. I'm not down with that at all. So don't get me wrong here. What I'm saying is that intolerance everywhere is bad. We need to learn how to find that common thread within each of us so that we can, take advantage of our numerical superiority over our ruling elite, our captors, if you will, and stick it to the man, because nobody has any institutions, any control of any outlets or mass media or any even access to mass media. The only time you hear about demonstrations or protests and things like that on the news is during the traffic report, when they tell you, oh, we need to avoid the feeder ramp to O'Hare Airport today because there's a sit-in protest by people who are protesting against caffeinated beverages in the workplace or something, or whatever the hell it's going to be. But that's the only time that you'll hear it is on the traffic report. You'll need to avoid some protesters. And now, time for sports. Why are sports on the news? Okay? Does anybody know why sports are on the news? It's not news. It's entertainment. If we're going to put, like, sports on the news, why not put, like a daily update on the Kardashians on the news? It's just as relevant to what's going on around us. And the lottery. Why are the lottery numbers on the news? Did I miss something? Or does anybody remember that gambling is bad? It's fun. Everybody gets off on everything like that on their way to the poorhouse. But they're on their way to the poorhouse. And there's a lot of people whose lives get destroyed, families get destroyed, people get destroyed, doing all kinds of nasty things to make up for the fact that they lost their shirt on gambling. And yet there it is, right there on the freaking news, like it's news. It's not news. It's selling out the human race is what it is. And these guys need to, pay a price for it. I think they all need to go to, let's see what would be a good torture for them. I think, maybe sitting through a Mariah Carey concert or maybe 2 Mariah Carey concerts. At some point, we're going to have to, because we don't have the money or the resources or the money to be able to have any sort of, real process to condemn these people. They'll pull out lawyers out of their ass, by the dozens, and will never be able to convict anybody of any white-collar crimes or anything like that. But certainly the politicians who are in charge of scamming out on our lives and ruining people's lives over, making the lottery even exist. It was sold to us as supposed to increase money for education. What they did was they put the lottery money to education. They took all the other money that they had out before they had the lottery and put it into their pockets so that they could pay for a bunch of, they need to have their lawns manicured in just the perfect way so that their homeowners association won't get pissed off. Am I right? I'm right. I'm right. I might not be right, but I'm probably right. The fact of the matter is that it shouldn't be on news. Either way, it shouldn't be on news. It's not news. It's what other crimes, that the state is committing against us. Can we make a daily feature on the news that are more relevant than the frickin' lotto numbers? Maybe we could get the, Epstein file detail report on a daily basis instead of the lotto numbers, or the sports report, or maybe we could get all the various different rundowns of the day, all the lies that Donald Trump and all the thievery that's going on with the Donald Trump family against the United States report instead of sports. I'm down. Who the hell needs anything about it? Sports. Look, people are should be able to. There's a lot of different options for people to be able to defrag and get a little escapism, whatever. It doesn't really. Nobody's opinions on what's right or wrong, and that comes to like what people want to enjoy on their free time to kind of have life be just a little bit worth living. But sports are a big freaking waste of time, and it dumbs down everybody. So I don't see, that, it's necessary, laudable or anything like that. It doesn't belong. It doesn't belong on a news program. We got a half an hour with, a third of it dedicated to commercials. 20 minutes on local news is not enough to be able to think that, oh, well, let's throw about 4 minutes of it into sports of all freaking useless, worthless bulldink. So, I mean, if you want to start, hating everybody and have that be the defining final statement of the human race as they literally wipe us out off the face of the frickin' planet, go right ahead. Be my guest, but I'm done with it. I'm living by one thing only, not the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, which are really two sides of the same coin. They're the same people serving the same master. Our captors, we're in captivity. That's plain simple truth. And this country is toast. Absolute toast. It's been totally, they've, we used to throw wars and stuff like that back in the old days. Back in the old days, they used to have wars, where they would, the booty, as it were, would be funds that they would extract from the users of the conflict. But now, the booty, if you will, is stolen from the people who the government represents. In other words, the Iraq War, they already had all the contracts for oil. It wasn't blood for oil. What they got was a multi-billion-dollar no bid contracts for Halliburton and tons of counterinsurgency weaponry and drones and all that kind of stuff, so they could update the army with stuff after the Cold War when nobody really needed a whole lot of tanks anymore. And then, of course, it served as a sort of quasi arms dealership show. That's really kind of what Iraq was. Where, all these political despots and stuff like that would see all the great military hardware in action, which is a lot better of a sales pitch, I'm sorry to say, than, having some show out in Southern California. Everybody could see all this stuff in action, and we only get a very limited amount of these videos. I wouldn't be surprised that there's a lot of this stuff that they have media embedded in with the military and have done so since Reagan. Ronald Wilson Reagan, by the way, the beast whose name is the number 666, 6 letters in each of his names. So we don't get to see any of the real stuff that's going on in these wars done in our name. There's a little dribs and drabs and stuff like that. But I bet you there's a channel, like Human Suffering Channel or something, or the Slaughter Channel, that they feed directly to, this group of elites and stuff like that we're never allowed to see. And, like probably a few channels, they'll probably have like a slaughtering brown people version of the Discovery Channel and a backscatter machine of naked young boys channel, and probably, what else would they have? Oh, just Human Misery Channel, where, people suffering, good people suffering, trying, beating their heads against the glass ceiling, or being rejected by having their distribution scaled back and limited by, the distribution networks and stuff like that, and watch people sort of just drift into aimless desperation and depression. They're watching us with all these cameras, and yet they can't seem to solve like a group of thieves in Chicago will knock over like 4 or 5 places in a night, and they've got cameras everywhere, and every electronic device, every car, every has all these electronic devices, and they can't figure out what the hell's going on. And catch these people. It's just like there's a big huge disconnect. It's like that huge disconnect that they had back, when Al Qaeda was still kind of menacing the world. Al Qaeda presented to you by the CIA, the Thompson underground subterfuge. How Al Qaeda, we were told they have to take off our shoes at airports, and we got to, do all this and that and the other thing. We need to have this Patriot Act so they can, view us and see us and do search and seizures without warrants, without any real justification whatsoever. And yet, during that entire time, they don't get one single bomb past the border or past anything into the United States. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And yet, there's 50 bazillion tons of drugs that come into this country every day. I mean, there's a huge chasm of disconnect here. Don't you see it? Can't you tell what's going on? What are you up to out there? I mean, it's just like completely pathetic. Am I missing something here? Am I nuts? Or is there just like sort of, maybe the big disconnect is the giant space between your ears? Sorry, not sorry? All right, so anyway, who gives a rat's ass? Rotten bastards. All right, so a lot of people think these top 10 worst of lists aren't, legitimate. They're just sort of, I'm making up on the fly, but that's not true. It's not true. You can project all you want about all the phoniness that you've been infused with, all the, the fantasy island that the United States has become with all this, despair and social engineering that we've become accustomed to by the various different elements within the cultural mechanisms that they've co-opted into a third-party outsourced propaganda ministry. Yes, no, maybe. A, yes. B, all of the above. Or C, both A and B. All right. So I get it. So you're totally, uninformed, ignorant, delusional, in fact, to the point where you don't even have free will, because so much in your world is full of lies that you become like the living embodiment of a lie. And when we're living like that, all of us, and none of us really has free will, because we don't have enough objective information to be able to know what the truth is, to be able to make a real decision. Right? Somebody asks you, you're a kid, okay, and your parents have been lying to you all your life about these phantasmagorical shills for the materialistic society that they've infused into us as being of preeminent importance all of our lives. So you ask a kid, say, before they realize that the parents have been lying to them all their lives, and which destroys their souls, by the way. But that's a tale that I'll have to save for another day. But you ask the kid to say, which one is your favorite, small kid? Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, the leprechauns, or what's another one that they have with the thing? Whatever. Oh, the Tooth Fairy. That's the other one I was trying to think of. And they say, oh, the Tooth Fairy. And you're like, great. The thing is that those kids are making a decision based on a bunch of lies, a bunch of obfuscations, a bunch of fantasy land level of fairy tales that have been infused into them all their lives. So they're making choices between a bunch of things that don't really exist. Our whole lives are like that now. The whole freaking world is like that now. We're making choices between a bunch of things that don't actually exist. Hello? Anybody there? Who is it? It's the AI cybernetic robots to take you down to the death camps. But anyway, so people think that these aren't real lists, but these are real lists. It's put together by a team of clock dancing somnambulists who gather together just outside of Niagara Falls and come up with these lists while taking copious doses of extra strength Tylenol mixed with ragweed and and one other thing before we embark upon this incredible, enlightening odyssey is we've got commercials, sponsors, from the producers of the movie series Back to the Future, which is, by the way, I have to interject again, I'm sorry, but Back to the Future, I mean, what's kind of stupid, self-serving, dumbing down piece of garbage that is, right? You're all going to be on the tip of this one. You got to be. Because if you got a time machine, and the best that you can do with that time machine is to go back a couple of decades and make sure that that you don't have sex with your mother is just absolutely insane. Where's the, stopping Hitler, stopping Trump, stopping Hillary Clinton, stopping the dodo bird from going extinct, stopping the rhino horn from ever getting powdered rhino horn from getting popularized as an aphrodisiac. I mean, there's all kinds of great things that you could be stopping. But the movie is based on the idea that a kid is going to go back in time and have sex with his own mother. And he's got to stop that. It's just so trite. As if it's a waste of time. And then they go and make more of these movies where it's more self-indulgence and more personalized and myopic. It becomes so absolutely, I mean, it's just like, what are they doing? They make all the subjects like really myopic. I don't know what it is with that. Maybe it just like sort of shrinks our perspectives so that we don't get any, sort of idea of, global definitions of the world around us. I don't know. Anyway, so from the producers of Back to the Future is Back to the Present, a movie where people do nothing and go nowhere. Pretty much like the original, oddly enough. And from the people that brought you Old Navy stylized yuppie wear, now comes painfully Old Navy to accommodate the fact that the yuppies, thank God, are getting so old that they're about to die off any minute now. Thank God. It's painfully Old Navy. And then the television show that's number one with a rocket, the game show without peer, it's Name That Weed Strain, where guests take bong hits off of large bongs and try to guess the name of that weed strain. This is going to be purple haired kind buds, the sticky ickies, or the dank African barking spider. It's Name That Weed Strain. God damn it. Tune in or we'll come and find you and rip your nuts off with a wire cutter. All right, so it's time now finally, God damn it, for the top 10 worst of list. Today's top 10 worst of list, as I mentioned before, is quite the humdinger. Top 10 worst real life people that would make great Bond villains. And I know what you're all thinking, but I had to turn them down because the state of affairs in my physical well-being is not the state of affairs that they need for the physical well-being. Now I pick up on my fair share of rough trade when necessary on the reg. But even with that, it's difficult for me to do all that bouncing about and whatnot that a Bond villain invariably has to do. Although I think it could be pretty villainous. What do you think of this? Kind of like watching, what's this guy that with his face melting? Oh yeah, that's No Country Left Behind guy, Eric Bedosian. What's that guy? He's got the thing with the face, and he's like, he's got all these things that he does. Javier Bardem. Gonna be like Javier Bardem. Can I do it? That one scene that I can't watch that scene where his face smells. He takes out the teeth in his face, and the face kind of collapses. Like, hate that stuff. I close my eyes. I avert my gaze. And I'm comfortable enough in my manhood to be able to admit that. Huh. A lot of you probably aren't. Especially those of you who have lost their manhood at some point in the great mystery of life. All right, so anyway, number 10, the top 10 worst real people make great Bond villains. Iggy Pop. Now, this one is actually, it's not meant to be a joke. I really think that Iggy Pop, well, especially now that he's like the 80-year-old Iggy Pop when he takes his shirt off and all that sagging, moist, sagging flesh drapes all over and rolls over his belt line, and you're just like kind of going like, it is kind of like watching Javier Bardem's face melt. Iggy Pop. What was that line about Iggy Pop being a poet disguised as a... Wait, no. It's what? Jim Morrison is a buffoon. No. A buffoon, a drunk, pretending to be a poet, and Iggy Pop is a poet pretending to be a drunk. Something like that. But Iggy Pop, I think, would make actually a great Bond villain. Scary as hell nowadays, especially. Even in the old days, I think he would have probably made a great Bond villain. But now it's just like, God, horror show. I know it's not supposed to talk about people's looks, but God damn it, I know that people are going to be talking about mine. They're going to look at me and they're going to be like, oh, well, I'm not going to judge a book by its cover. Oh, hell no. And they see me coming and it's like, oh my God. And they threw me out of my freaking doctor's office because people thought that I was going to drop dead on the way to the examination room. Or the examination room. If you want to put the emphasis on the right syllable. Number 9 of the top 10 worst real life people make great Bond villains. Randy the Big Unit Johnson. Now here's another guy who's, I think, legitimately could be, if you didn't know that Randy Johnson, if you didn't have Big Unit, prior recognition and for what he is, just a, like a dumbass, brain dead pitcher with absolutely no intrinsic value as a human being whatsoever. Like, and you just saw him for the first time, you'd be like, wow, that guy could be the new Jaws, like from Moonrakers and stuff, and whatever else he was in. I just remember from Moonrakers when he falls in love with that lady that doesn't talk or whatever. That's top-notch romance, because there's subtextual romance. That's the best. I think that's the best subtextual romance that there is in any Bond movie. It's the love between Jaws and that little blonde lady. But yeah, Randy the Big Unit Johnson, you saw him coming in with the metal teeth and stuff like that. Do you think like, wow, that guy is like just as good as Jaws, probably. Number 8, top 10 worst real life people who make great Bond villains. Jenna Bush Hager. Now I know a lot of you drips and Martha Stewart wannabes are all like hearing me saying the Jenna Bush Hager on this list, and you're thinking like, how dare you say such nastiness about the beloved Jenna Bush Hager. We wake up to Jenna Bush Hager every morning. She says, she's the one who says, "Good morning, America. And how could you say such bad things about such a trusted media mouthpiece? Well, I'll tell you why. And I won't be shy about it either. The freaking Bush family is like the preeminent bunch of closet Nazis in the history of closet Nazis. Sorry, not sorry. Okay? Prescott Bush was like running Union Bank in 1942 after war were declared between the United States and Germany, where he was laundering money for Hitler. And just to add to that, why would there be a bank in the United States that's laundering money for Hitler if there's not somebody in the United States that's feeding money to Hitler? So Prescott Bush, man, is like, was Hitler's banker. Hello. Okay. And this guy is like, creeping around after we elect the freaking head of the military to be the head of the civilian government in the form of Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1952. And we think, well, that's going to be okay. But then Harriman and Prescott Bush and Allen Dulles and all these freaking creepy fascists who are 10 times as bad as like the overt Nazis. And they just come creeping in and overthrow the United States government. Fifth column operatives overthrow the United States government from within. It's never been the same. And that from that point on, there's all kinds of different lefty purges. We refuse to admit are actual real life lefty purges, but they were. The United States purge of everybody on the left, whether at first it was just wiping them off and killing them off and, coming up with disturbing ways to, ruin their vitality. And then that got replaced by the consolidation of power and corporations becoming a third-party outsourced propaganda ministry and consolidation of power in their hands. And they were all complicit in creating just a horribly bleak, ultra-right-wing society and committed propaganda system, created a propaganda system light years beyond anything that Joseph Goebbels created. I mean, Joseph Goebbels would wet his lederhosen quite literally if he would have seen people like Robert Pittman and other McCarthyism and Nixon and all these different types of things that they did to people. And you name one frickin' leftward leaning progressive in since then that hasn't been done away with in some weird way. Name them all. I'm naming, a million of them. Sam Cooke has probably a dozen top 10 hits, something like that. He's murdered while walking around naked in some slummy, scummy motel, even though he's just had like a dozen top 10 hits. What's the guy doing running naked through a motel in a messed up part of town in the middle of the night, freaking out? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Obviously, there's still tons of questions on JFK and RFK's murders. And I'm not going to go into it in this particular edition because it just doesn't belong. But, and even to this day, you get John Lennon, you get Aaron Swartz, you get, Sly Stone goes nuts on drugs, and Brian Wilson goes nuts, and Gene Clark, who is the brain trust behind the Byrds when they were the most political band probably of all time. He goes nuts. They both go nuts. Both Clark and Brian Wilson both go nuts on an airplane. They have a toxic freak on an airplane within a year of each other. Same goddamn exact thing. And then you get Lenny Bruce, who's harassed and blacklisted, and you get, it's just on and on. Just name anybody, any leftward-leaning person with a national level of exposure and distribution has been wiped the hell out. Period. And Jenna Bush Hager comes from the family that looks to be the main perpetrator. Certainly was involved in a big, huge way. Worked, Prescott Bush again worked for Harriman when he was at Union Bank. Union Bank was owned by Harriman. Harriman are the people that funded the Cole Harbor laboratories that actually tried to prove scientifically that white people were the master race. And they funded it. And that's who Prescott Bush worked for. One of the people from this family, I think, is where the H comes from H.W. Bush. And you're just looking at Jenna Bush Hager, my God. I would talk about creepy. If you saw Jenna Bush Hager as the axe murderer in Friday the 13th, you'd be just as scared as if you saw Jason. I don't know how you do it. How you look at that person, with your morning coffee and not be terrified. But it doesn't even look like it's a real face. It looks like there's some kind of dehumanized face underneath a prosthetic face. Number 7, the top 10 worst people who make great Bond villains is Lowry Mays. Okay, here's another guy that, look, I don't feel embarrassed or humiliated or ignorant that you don't know who Lowry Mays is. And let's be honest with you, you don't. He's the guy, he's the main guy who came up with Clear Channel. Clear Channel was the guy who, the company that invented Rush Limbaugh. And so and took over all these radio stations, 75% of the major market radio stations in the country, and started pushing Rush Limbaugh and all those kinds of people who were, brainwashing people to be dumbed down, to be hateful, and to, just completely disregard any of the objective truth of the world and the way it's run, in order for them to become mindless, obedient drones. And we think that, oh, wow, all these people are a cult. The cult was created by Lowry Mays. Okay? And they don't have any opposition, and haven't had opposition for, I don't know, they've been out of the Telecommunications Act of 1996, which was signed by another fifth column operative, Bill Clinton, in order to be able to make people, to open up the avenue for Clear Channel to be able to buy all these major market radio stations in the same market. And, so basically facilitated them to be able to, so 1996 until, now, so it's 30 years that they've been able to force feed, everybody in tons of the country, all of these lies. And they buy into it because they've got no one else who's providing opposing viewpoints. And so, yeah, sure. And there's no education. The education system is right out the window. And, what do you expect them to do? To not believe Rush Limbaugh? It's not. Number 6, Robert Pittman. The top 10 worst people who make great Bond villains. Robert Pittman, of course, is the guy who ran Clear Channel. And prior to that, he also ran MTV. In there from the day they went on the air, on the cable, as it were. And so he's probably the number one propagandist in the history of everything. There's nobody who even comes close to Robert Pittman. Joseph Goebbels on his best day, times 1,000, wouldn't even be able to touch the effectiveness of Robert Pittman's had. Robert Pittman, first of all, has been at it for 40-something years. So he's had a much longer run than Goebbels ever had. But he's also had, much larger, more penetrating distribution than Goebbels could possibly have ever had. In every household, nobody even knows what the hell's going on. In the meantime, they taught probably about 2 generations of people to be, immersed in the idea that any form of cultural pursuit is all about how you look, and is surface-minded and dumb and fatuous and malignant all at the same time. That's Robert Pittman, created all that. And again, Rush Limbaugh. So what else do I have to say? Nothing. Number 5, the top 10 worst real life people who make great Bond villains, and that's you. You. I'm talking to you. Because you didn't know who Lowry Mays or Robert Pittman are, and you aren't familiar with the multiple crimes against humanity that they committed. And how many times do you expect to be let off the hook for letting all this happen on your watch? The price of freedom, okay, is eternal vigilance. Can any of you say that you've been eternally vigilant? Or even partially vigilant? The only partial that you've had is, well, I don't need to go into that, do I? All right, so number 4 of the top 10 worst real life people who make great Bond villains, Paris Hilton. Paris Hilton, how has she not been a Bond villain already? You know? It's just like, what this, Dr. Skeezer or something like that. I know they all the Bond villains have funny names and whatnot, or they used to. They haven't really sort of gave up on all that, I guess, because, they were all, look, it was 1962 and they're writing a book called Octopussy, right? Whenever that book came out, it was somewhere in the 50s, early 60s, something like that. But the guy who wrote them all was like he died during Dr. No or right after Dr. No. So, he didn't last long. He wrote, a dozen books or something like the Bond books. And all, had like Pussy Galore, and Octopussy, and what is it, that lady, oh man, I can't remember any of the other good ones that they had. Plenty O'Toole, is another one. So that was all like in the early '60s. And what happened to all those cool names? And Javier Bardem, we talked about him earlier. Did he have any funny names like Plenty of Tool or nothing like that? No. Some kind of Larry. All the fun's gone out of it. It's really like we had to, just become more and more and more and more infantile and overly sensitive about stuff like that. It was a poor, career choice for the human race, and they're about to pay the ultimate price. But hey, Paris Hilton, she would make a great Bond villain. Call her, or Octomom instead of Octopussy. Octomom, that would be a good one. Octomom, she was pretty scary looking. Number 3 of the top 10 real life people isn't exactly a real life person, but the Wizard of Oz Scarecrow. I always thought that he'd make a great Bond villain. He's brainless, and epitomizes the modern day American psyche. I think a lot of the viewing audience would be able to relate to someone without a brain at this point. Yes, number 2 of the top 10 all-time worst real people who make great Bond villains. Also, once again, not a real person. Rambo. There's Rambo going off. He's like murdering Rambo 2 or whatever that was. He's murdering all these people of color. And everybody back in those days like cheering on Rambo. He's like, the great American heroes, American gladiators, killing brown people. Let's do it, Rambo. Come on, Rambo. Ramp it up. Hundreds of kills, on-screen kills. And then in the very next movie, where we see Rambo's back again, fighting alongside of the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. Thanks, Rambo. Maybe, you could help explain that to the 3,000 people that were killed on 9/11 by your comrades in arms in Rambo 3. Now I can't wait to see, they're doing a prequel of Rambo after they did, I couldn't even watch any of the other ones. I think there's 2 others that Stallone was Rambo and latter day Rambos. But now they got a prequel coming. Can't wait to see what the kill count is in that. It's going to be something along the lines I'm thinking of John Wick. And I've got a list, I think a top 10 worst of list that I've been working on. Top 10 worst movies, kill count in movies. But anyway, so the number 1 top 10 worst real life people make great Bond villains. Got to give it to Hillary Clinton. What? The woman who's solely responsible for destroying the opportunity that we had back in 1993 to get national health care. And she was put in charge of it for some ungodly reason, even though she had no experience in healthcare, no experience in red tape in Washington, no experience in administrative things, no experience in creating macroeconomic decisions that would reshape healthcare as we knew it in the United States. And still, all she had to do was say Medicare for all, and we would have had a national health single payer option since 1993. But instead, she comes out with this giant phone book that nobody could even read, let alone vote on it. Never came up for a vote, and that one tiny little window that we had for national health went by the wayside. And that was Hillary Clinton. She did it. And if you take a close look at her, you find out that, during all of her formative years, she was a hardcore ultra right-wing Republican who volunteered for Barry frickin' Goldwater, right? And then, also went down to the Republican Convention of Miami Beach in 1968. So who is she? I mean, is she the, hardcore, devout, ultra-right winger from her formative years? Or is she the Democrat who destroyed their one opportunity of getting real single-payer national health in the United States? Either way, it's messed up. So I'm giving it to her, although I will give an honorable mention to Donald Trump. Now, he's not responsible for what he does. He's just he's just pure puppet. He looked shocked when he was declared the winner of the 2016 election, and they had that stupid little cake that looked like it cost about $12 at a local grocery store bakery to make, that shaped like his head, and they rolled that out, and that was a big, insane. But Hillary's throwing the election by refusing to campaign in any of the blue wall states, and instead campaigning down in Texas, saying that Texas was in play when she lost by 9 points. All kinds of different things. But I will say that Donald Trump is the biggest narcissist jagoff in the history of narcissistic jagoffs, and that all throughout his life he's been a failure, destroying everything that he touches, and a pathetic, surface-minded pig. I'll say the same thing, really about any politician, to be honest with you. I don't play favorites. I think they're all horrible. I think they're all bought and paid for by the ruling elite, and they're out to do us wrong. And there isn't a single one of them that represents the working class and the blue-collar types of the independent businesses of this country. They're all out for the billionaire class, and that's all they're out for. So screw them all right? If we're ever going to get out from underneath their frickin' leather boot heel, we're going to have to start realizing that all these guys are working against us, and stop thinking that gridlock is a mistake, that they just can't avoid it. It's a smokescreen. Well, because all the big beautiful bill that gives tons of billions of dollars to the rich, that sailed through. And that's the whole thing. These are obvious clues. We're so busy fighting amongst ourselves that we can never get on board for the big win together. And that's the only way we're going to be able to do it, as we stop, competing right versus left, which is these artificial constructs that they're put together in order to be able to keep us from being able to see the big picture properly and be able to fight to protect ourselves against a war that's being waged against humanity right now. And finally say to ourselves, the only real divisions between people are between the haves and have-nots. Not to say that I'm a communist or a socialist or anything like that, although I do believe that property taxes in the United States really means that, there's no private ownership of property whatsoever. Because if you stop paying your property tax, you'll find out who really owns your property, and that property tax is rent, and that the state actually owns our property, and that we're actually, in reality, a socialist country because of that, because of property taxes. And that, ultimately, what we wind up having is a bunch of people who just, are exploiting us and using, well-worn tropes, trotting them out as if they had any meaning, which they don't, and they just, there's no alternative to what they have to say that we're allowed to have access to, so that we can, think outside the box just a tiny little bit and realize that these guys are malevolent monsters. Anyway, that's all the time we got for the. Did I do the top one? Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, this is the top 10 worst of real people make great Bond villains. What do you put your comments on the bottom and smash the freaking like button? I want to remind everybody that everything that I've said here is just, sort of basically, pretty much opinions only. And I don't necessarily have, the sort of wherewithal to be able to cite all my various different assertions and footnotes and whatnot. So you're going to have to, and I insist that you do. If you heard anything that you're not, that doesn't jibe with you or you don't think is kosher. Oops, I said a Jewish word. Don't hate me, all you alt-left and alt-right people. I'm so sorry. Look it up for yourselves. God damn it. What the hell? You expect a free ride? You expect me to carry your water? Nobody's carrying my water. God damn it. Here I am in the middle of nowhere, like a basement, basically, doing, feebly screaming my ass off at the dying of the light to no one. I mean, they won't even let anybody see my videos anymore. They've downshifted my distribution to 0. I've had 5 videos in the last 5 days have all had 0 views. Earlier before, sort of like when I was first getting started, I had one with a 25, a couple of 14s, a 12, and stuff like that, and pretty much views at least every day or every other day and stuff like that. But now it's 6 days in a row, probably 10 out of the last 11 days. You got nothing. Anyway, pleasure. Pleasure's all mine. It's an honor, really, to be here, to live long enough to be able to deliver this address. Thank you so much for being a part of it, and tune in again next time for more wild and crazy thoughts and assertions from your pals, the top 10 worst of lists. And until then, let's try and get through this mess together. What do you say?